So that's been the big learning for me and the big, aha is that like taking 8 hours of work down to 15 minutes
Yeah.
is huge.
All right, that was Ejieme Eromosele, and she runs customer growth at an AI company that helps large enterprises connect with their customers. Her buyers are customer experience and customer service leaders, which means the accounts she manages are exactly the kind everybody in customer success says are the hardest to run: bespoke contracts, custom integrations, high complexity, and high touch. Listen, I've been in that world for like 20 years, and yeah, they keep me employed, but they're hard. So before this, she built the first formal customer experience function at the New York Times, where she tied satisfaction to subscriber retention and won the Publishers Award for it. Before that, she spent a decade in consulting at PwC and Accenture. She has also been a company's first VP of Success. She founded Success in Black, and she wrote the Customer Success Talent Playbook. Clearly, a very talented person. So when she tells you something about post-sales, she has built the thing she's describing more than once. And I told her before this, I knew from the first time I met her in person, this is just somebody I couldn't BS. She's amazing. So, by the way, I'm Jeff Kashmerek. This is the AI Customer Success Brief. As always, please comment, like, and subscribe. Every episode on the show is about somebody who's built something that their team actually uses, and this one's definitely worth your time for a reason that has nothing to do with the tool that she picked. So they had a working process before she had any AI in the picture. She'd been running it for years, and when she finally pointed AI at it, the thing collapsed from 8 hours to 15 minutes. And the reason it worked that fast is that there was already something there to compress. And here's the problem she started with. Just a little note on that. When everybody's in all the tool confusion, that's exactly what I tell them is like, where's your problem? And the problem doesn't have to be risk all the time. It doesn't have to be churn. It definitely helps. But it could also be this thing takes us too much time. We could get more expansion over here. And so that's the lens people should be thinking about, not the tooling. Okay, let's get into the episode.
I run customer growth for an AI company. We help large enterprises connect with their customers using AI. So our buyer is typically a customer experience, customer service leader. Now we're exploring sales and other functions as well. But really the problem that I was solving for is how do we, especially since we're dealing with enterprise, as we know, bespoke contracts, custom integrations, high complexity, high touch. How do we consistently show up and plan ahead for, dealing with those accounts and dealing with them means, obviously being able to provide great service, but making sure we're getting ahead of retention. I'm on the post sale side of the house, right? So after an initial deal is closed, usually there's like a pilot period these days with our customers. So once we're even through the pilot phase and it's, kind of steady state, how do we make sure we're delivering the best value? And how do we make sure that we're hopefully on our side as well, capitalizing on that value? I love that you asked that because I was also very curious. And so my goal was to have, especially for our strategic accounts, that the AMs were grouping us all together, again, internal motion to discuss these accounts. But what I was finding was that it was taking upwards of 8 to 10 hours because it was a pretty thorough process. So
That's true.
we were getting things like, of course, like the usage data of what was going on in an account. We had Salesforce as our CRM. We also have Salesforce as our ticketing. We had outreach sending out emails, and we had obviously call recordings also in outreach via their
So
tool
much
called.
data.
And then last, what was a big missing piece for me was just like the external knowledge of the what's going on with that business, right? So a lot of these enterprises are publicly traded companies. And
So
so
pulling in like
you
10K
have,
stuff like
that's right, you have all of the financial reports, whether it's quarterly or annually, and just even kind of the news cycle. Like, we work with some pretty well-known brands. And so like what's happening on that account, what's happening at the macro level, that was honestly a big blind spot for us. And especially as we were thinking about expanding within an account, we really needed to come fully prepared. So it was taking 8 to 10 hours. That's right. Without that context, you kind of seem
Or
like you
sometimes
don't
you
know
could
what you're
use that as
talking
like you
about.
need that
Yeah,
stuff.
well, actually, the account planning motion I implemented was more internal facing. So the goal was that it was going to be a structured, recurring exercise where we review an account's health, the history, and the opportunity, and really to use that and turn it into a plan. So really giving the team, and the team being the account managers and the CSMs,
Yep.
a next best action, right? So what's the next best step or series of steps that we're going to take to maintain an account health, to perhaps get them healthy, or to continue to expand and to grow them. So that's really what I was solving for. And so this has been a process that we've been doing. The challenge is that it took quite a bit of time. So the prep time was eating into the process. What I built was a structured Claude skill. It has many different components. They've got, artifacts, they've got projects, but I wanted to build a skill because a skill is something that could live in our enterprise version of Claude, in our internal version of Claude, and something that every AM could use. And I really wanted it to be structured, because the other thing I found with the way we were doing account planning before is that some AMs took a deeper dive and were more thorough than others. And so with the skill, I could sort of lock down the level of detail that I was requiring them to complete. And so it was, you type into a box, as everyone does with Claude, but it actually walks you through the different inputs that are needed to build a full plan. And it flags any gaps. Well, I like to say drink our own champagne. I don't want to. I don't want to eat dog food. I don't want to eat dog food. I don't know about you, but I'm not eating dog food. And so,
Although protein, a lot of protein.
I can get protein other sources. So what we're pulling together, or what we tell our customers, is garbage in, garbage out, right? Or without context, the AI doesn't actually know what to do next. And so we had to apply that to the way that we were pulling in data to build this skill. And so there are actually, I think, 6 or 8 points of data and points of knowledge that we're feeding into the skill today. So, we're usaging. So we've got the actual usage data, we've got contract details. Again, dealing with enterprise, a lot of these agreements and contracts are pretty bespoke and custom. So we've got the specific terms and things that we've negotiated directly pulled into that skill for that account. We have, like I mentioned, the call recordings that are being tracked and monitored, our Salesforce tickets, Salesforce CRM notes, the emails that are logged through outreach. And so it's really a comprehensive view. The last piece that I wanted to add too, and this is sort of a separate step, is asking for a deep research into that account, right? So again, pulling things like financial reports, any general news about the specific customer and or the market that they're in and the customers that they serve. So having that context really kind of pulled everything together. The last thing that I'm working on is, because we use Slack internally, and we have specific Slack channels per account. So I'm working on pulling in the Slack channel details, because there's a lot of chatter, just a lot of like internal knowledge that,
and that's where someone might say,
get,
just see the
yeah.
So 8 to 10 hours per account. The AMs were pulling from 6 different places to get there. Let's go over that. Salesforce for the CRM, Salesforce again for the tickets, outreach for email. And by the way, if you're listening and not on YouTube, there's diagrams showing what this looks like. Kaya for call recordings, usage telemetry from the product, and then whatever they could find about the customer's own business from the outside. Super important. I'll admit I don't do that as much as we should either. Financial reports, earnings, news cycle, whatever, especially if you're a public company there, everybody's required to obviously file those things. She called that last one a blind spot, and the version of that problem she described is the one every AM has walked into at least once. You show up to talk about expansion and the customer has just had a bad quarter. You're the only person in the room who doesn't know it. But what I want you to hear is the next part, which is just how to get this out the door and not spend months iterating on the design before putting something out there.
To get the first iteration, I actually did the first ones myself. I'm a big fan of, I mean, I am a player coach. So I'm a big fan of like, let me just like do one or two and see how it works. And then I volunteered one person on my team to run through one or two of his accounts as well, just to test the process. But I mean, I like to move pretty quickly these days. We're still a small, earlier stage company. And so, speed is really a big differentiator in our business. And so I wanted to get something out quickly, even if it wasn't perfect. And so, to be honest, like we're still refining it, right? So there's still things that, there was a thing where I had to actually lock down the format of the output, because it was generating, like it was taking some liberties and generating. I had to say like only use this specific template and make sure the executives is not more than X of words. And so that was refinement over time. And there's still more refinement to do. But I mean, I think or at least what I would behoove folks to do, is to build and deploy quickly. This stuff is changing so fast that, speed is definitely
Yeah.
to our
If you
advantage.
take,
Nothing that necessarily went horribly wrong. I think a refinement is, so we use Claude primarily, but there was one of our RevOps gentlemen had mentioned that actually using Google for deep research, using Gemini for deep
yeah,
research was actually oftentimes a better output. And so I actually now have a step in the Claude skill for the account manager to take a prompt and put it in Google Gemini for
I don't
deep
blame you. Yeah.
research and then pulling that into Claude. So
You know what
that's
I
just
found
again a
out
refinement.
on that?
Yeah, and I think what AI is helping me see now related to that example is that there's several jobs to be done. Maybe Claude can do 80% of it well, but tinker and play around and see if there's something that is a specialist role in terms of a different AI tool that can
Right.
get you even further. No, so
Yeah.
so the only thing that I had to do, I actually had to go through our internal security team because this was something. So once you have a skill in Claude, at least with our organization, now anyone can go and say, "Hey, Claude, I want to build an account plan for insert customer name," and so it's going to walk them through the same prompt. So to have that ability to just be able to, surface the account planning skill across anyone at our company, I have to go through InfoSec to make sure
Yeah.
that we weren't being exposed, we weren't sharing or, putting any potential customer
Oh,
data at
yeah.
risk. But that was only other step internally. So now it's readily available for anyone to use. Yeah, we're still finding things. I'm trying
Yeah.
to do like a release cycle, so I'm not in there tinkering every day.
I know.
But the release cycle is like a week, so I'll usually
Oh,
like
okay.
wait until I have like two or three things, to kind of
Build up a
pull in.
backlog, start
Yeah,
knocking it out. So
yeah. But
awesome.
these things aren't critical, right? They're kind of like optimization. And just to be clear, I built this myself,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
this is not something that I needed ops or anything to
yeah.
build for me. So yeah, like and even like I find myself now, even if I don't know how to build something, ask Claude to help you figure out how to build it, right? So even with that, use this prompt in Gemini to do deep research, it takes about 15 minutes. So we've been able
Crazy.
to now the goal is that we're actually reviewing these accounts with more frequency, again, speed. So not only speed and getting the account plans done, but the whole goal is to have a plan that you then go implement. So speed
Yeah.
of implementing what those next actions are. And
Yeah.
so, that's actually the next step of the process. So the way the process goes, the account manager, takes about 15 to 20 minutes, gets the account plan done. We hold a session internally where the CSM, account manager, I as the executive lead, talk about, okay, what's the output? What are the things that we actually want to do? We record that call and we put it back into Claude. And
Do
then
the same
Claude is
shit.
like,
Sorry. Oh,
well,
that's
well,
exactly
Claude
right.
is now is like, here are the next steps, here are the specific owners, and here are the due dates that you talked about. So now the whole process is like we have things that we go off and do on an account to get it healthier, to capitalize on expansion opportunities. But now we have a plan that is quickly generated and quickly activated. It allows us to go do all the strategic work. It allows us to, go activate our leadership team to talk to the executives on their side. It gives us specific things that our CEO and our C-suite can go activate. Like it's been such a powerful motion for us. I would say just get started, right?
Right.
Even ask Claude, like, here's my organization, like, here's what we need to do. Like, how
Yeah.
can you help me? Like, it's super easy just to ask it what you don't know, and it at least gives you a starting point.
Okay, so I wanted to cover a few things. First of all, the economics 8 to 10 hours down to 15 or 20 minutes. Let's think about what the number is on that because the time saved is the part that gets quoted and money is the part that gets the budget, right? So take an account manager, I don't know, let's just make round numbers between $60,000 and $100,000 in base salary against a 2,080 hour a year that's somewhere between $29 and $48 an hour. The numbers wind up being so large here in savings it doesn't matter. But the old version of that account plan cost between $230 and $480 in labor every time somebody ran it. The new version costs between $7 and $16, right? And then you can prep better. So again, this isn't about getting rid of people. It's like making sure that you can do the stuff that you be talking about and wanting to do and not all the research. Now, the careful part about this when talking with your CFO, we're not banking the money here. She's reviewing accounts. more often than she used to. She's spending the reclaimed hours on the plan instead of the prep. What she bought was 7.5 hours of capacity per account and put that back into the work so you can be more educated about your account. So that's amazing. You know, the reason I wanted this episode on the show, besides Dave's being an amazing speaker and really know what she's talking about, is the sequence, right? She ran a manual account planning process for years. She knew what a finished plan needed to contain, and she knew where the gaps were, and then she pointed AI at a problem. Just like you might know QBR creation or, oh, risk takes us too long, whatever. You know the process, and you know it's not optimal, so you're pointing AI at the problem to make it optimal. So, one more thing about how she did it. She built the first 2 account plans herself before she asked anyone on our team to touch it. She shipped it before it was finished. She's still refining it on a weekly release cycle. That's a player coach building for her own team. It's a completely different thing from a committee evaluating vendors for 2 quarters. I always use the story of, 2 people are getting ready for a marathon and at the New Year's Eve party, and one person takes too long to plan it. Every couple of weeks they talk, and one person's saying they're looking at shoes and optimal time of running and everything, and then the other person started on New Year's Day and they're like 8 miles a day now or something, right? But essentially you're seeing the difference here. People go after it and run to it, and some people delay the process and procrastinate and go deep and beautiful minded. So happy for coming on the show here. Dave is in the show notes, and she said she is happy to talk to anyone who wants to build something like this. So apologies for the DMs, but you said it, not me. And there we go. Thanks so much for listening.